Good morning, everybody. This is Kitster, and I am going to try to recreate the True Grit story using the True Grit Trail that was created by some high school students up in a place called Russellville, Arkansas, which is just north of Dardanelle. And this is where the story begins for Maddie Ross and her servant, her hired worker, as they take the train ride out to Fort Smith. It's a long ride, so I'm going to double speed it here because we have a lot to get through to get it done. It's over 260 miles for the complete trip. And the high school students try to recreate where they believe the trail took place, the ride took place in the whole affair of the story. And I just finished reading the book. I've watched the movies, and I'm trying to fit this trail into the book, and I can't quite make it work. But it starts with Maddie Ross taking a train ride to Fort Smith, and then at Fort Smith, she meets up with Rooster Cockburn and LaBeef, Mr. LaBeef, and they go on a pursuit of Tom Cheney, who had shot and killed her father here at Fort Smith. And she's out to avenge the blood of her father, and also at the meantime put her father back on a train to go back to Dardanelle while she goes out to find the killer. And as they take off on the ride, they understand when they get to Salisaw that this person named Ned Pepper has been found, and he's up in this area, and he has just robbed a train. And I think that Tom Cheney, who was responsible for killing her father, is worked this group of people, and they eventually get down to this little cabin down here, and there's a shootout that takes place in the cabin. And the way that the ride works, I'm pretty much sure this is the way it goes till you get to here. And then from here, eventually they get to McAllister, and they drop off some dead bodies. But I don't think they went here and then back to Robbers Cave. I think instead the trip went more from about Kinta, and then they went south and ran into this, and then from here went over to McAllister, and then eventually back over here to the Whiting Stair Mountains, to the episode where there's the Maddie gets captured, and then she ends up with Tom Cheney, and gets into a snake pit. She kills Tom Cheney, falls into a snake pit, and Rooster Cogburn has his famous shootout with the bandits right out about here. And then LaBeef makes the famous long-range shot with his long-range gun. I'll get the name of it just a second. Sharp's rifle. And he makes a 600-yard shot from up here. And eventually the three of them get Maddie out of the cave and try to take care of her snake bite. But while the high school students have these trail ending right here, really Rooster Cogburn takes her back up to Fort Smith and tries to get her to a doctor to save her life. Unfortunately, not in time to save her arm. And here the story differs. It's kind of a question of whether you like the John Wayne version of the story, or you like the done in 1969, or the Jeff Bridges that was done in 2010. The Jeff Bridges takes Maddie all the way back up here to Fort Smith, and the LaBeef, he's heading back. Well, he'll be heading over here and then down south to Texas. He's a Texas Ranger, but he's pretty much going home empty-handed after he'd been wounded and hit in the head with rock. But in the John Wayne movie, it looked like he died right here from the head collision. So there's variances in it. If you're a John Wayne fan, you're going to always love the John Wayne movie, and I do too, because I'm a John Wayne fan. The only reason that I kind of favor the Jeff Bridges version is because the mountains in Oklahoma aren't as tall as what they show in John Wayne, of which a lot of it was shot out in Arizona. Arizona. And the mountain ranges are spectacular, but they weren't really what was shown in the movie. So these are more realistic to what I would consider the Choctaw country. Yeah, Monument Valley, Arizona was where a lot of the John Wayne was shot. And I couldn't find out where this was shot, but I do like the mountains that they showed in here because it looks more realistic. And by realistic, I'll show you where we are going in my flight plan. My flight plan differs a little bit because when they find out in Salisal that the Wagoneer was where the Ned Pepper and his gang robbed the railroad, which was the Kansas, Texas, Missouri Railroad, later known as the Katy Railroad, and they robbed that, and then they headed down to this place called the Caves and did a hideout there, and from there they got away in a fight, but they were left with some dead bodies, so they took them over to McAllister and then rode back here, and this is where the shootout occurred, where the snake bite occurred, where Rooster Cogburn did his lone man against four on horseback, and then eventually took Maddie back up here to Fort Smith. So I cut out this section right in here because I couldn't make it fit the story to go all the way over here, back up to here, and then back down to here. So I think this is a little more true to life, where the events in the story took place. And the events in the story took place, they really represented real people who lived at the time. There was the hanging judge in Fort Smith. There was a wild, crazy marshal, had one eye. His name wasn't Rooster Cogburn, but that's the character that they used for this, I believe. And the other characters were individual bandits who were out here doing their thing, maybe with other people. So it's a composite of a bunch of different people who go together to make up the story. So up here at Wagoneer is the railroad that goes south. This is known as the Texas Road that goes all the way down into Dallas. And Mr. LaBeef would probably taken that road on the way back. And then I have some friends over here at Sooner Plant Farm who I've done a video on before, and they are in basically the Choctaw territory. They're borderline Cherokee Nation right in here, and Choctaw comes down here from Fort Smith and down. So with all that said, and without further ado, I'm going to put my window back on the other side and we'll hop in the plane. And because it is a long flight, I've already started it up and got the motors running. I've got the flight plan in place, even put in what I perceive to be the procedure to land, and we will just kind of go from here. So here we are in the plane, and this is the Dardanelle, which is on the north side of the Arkansas River, and Mattie Ross lives on the south side. So when we take off right here, we'll be going out, we'll swing to the right, and we will try to get over the river and over to her place. I don't really know where it is, and then head over to Fort Smith. So that's kind of the direction we're going. It's early December. I chose December 11, the day that lives in infamy, and it was lightly snowing. I try to make the light snow, but when I do, I can't get far up in the clouds before we can't see the ground anymore, and I'm trying to showcase the ground here. So as you can see, the mountains are back here, and they're not overly tall. They're not like Monument Valley mountains, and you can see them back here a little better, and they're not going to get much taller than that all the way. So with that said, let's hop into the plane. We'll get down here. This is the Diamond DA42, and I'm not going to really get into it so much. The story isn't about the Diamond, which is a beautiful plane, but it's more about true grit. So we'll try to stay with the story, get her going. And if you notice in the front seat, I've got Mr. Bandit with me. He's my co-pilot for the day. and we will bring him along and see how he behaves. So, like I said in the beginning, the first part of this, we're just going to go a little fast at what I call double speed, and then we will slow down, enjoy the rest of the journey. So with that said, let's get this caution light off. We got everything ready. We're going to release the brakes, and we will throttle up, and we will get the show on the road. Seems like everything got updated here recently. The video drivers, the airplane, Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's all happening at one time. So we're 100% power right here, kind of waiting for the speed to get up, and we're at a point where we can rotate right about here, and it looks like we have a nice steady climb. I'm going to tap the brakes, and we will bring the gear up, and don't have any flaps up because this plane takes off beautifully without the flaps. I'm going to bring back the power more to about 80%. And then we will try to circle around here a little bit and find Mattie Mae's place. So we've got to cross over the Arkansas River, which should be right up here. I'm just going to hand fly it for a little while before I put it on autopilot. So, hope you enjoy the ride, and I hope that I can tell the story honestly. Again, I'm not really trying to recreate the book or recreate the movies. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what I think the ground looked like from up above on the incredible journey that was displayed in the book and the movies. It's quite a story. Hope you get a chance to read the book. The book was written by Charles Portis, and it was, I think I went a little too far. Let's get down here. I think the Arkansas River is straight ahead there on the left. Yes. So let's just cruise over there a little bit, give you an idea of what it looked like. She says that they owned a farm. It was free and clear of the title, and so she's going to be leaving her mother and some siblings behind to go after this Tom Chaney to bring him to justice and bring him back. Although her family thinks she's just going down to get her father's remains and the artifacts that he had, and the fact that he had bought some ponies that had come up from Texas, and he wanted to do something different this winter. He wanted to put ponies out on the ground on their farm, fatten them up a little bit for the winter, and then use them for people who wanted to go hunting, deer hunting, bear hunting, whatever the case may be. This is the Arkansas coming up here. You can see it. And because the ponies were smaller than horses, it would be easier to take it off the trails and go to the woods and go after the prey. So he had never done this before. This was going to be a new adventure for him. So I thought, well, why not? Let's just do it, make it happen, and see how it goes. So I see that I'm actually kind of speeding in this plane. I'm only running about 85% power. I can see we're doing about 150 knots on the left-hand side. But we got a long distance to travel today, so we're going to push it into the yellows just a little bit. After all, I can reset the damage when I land, and we'll be in good shape afterwards. So we'll just stay south of the river here for a little bit. Not really knowing where her place is, but to get an idea down here that it could have been anywhere down here. And I'm sure that people enjoyed the looks of these mountains and the scenery, the change of scenery during the winter season, spring seasons, and all that takes place. So with that said, let us just going to go ahead and I'm going to set my heading here for a second. I'm going to put my heading right about here. put her in heading mode. I can read it. Whoa, better come up. Kind of flying left-handed while I do this. And then we will turn on the autopilot. There we go. The autopilot wouldn't go on. And now I'm trying to stabilize it in the autopilot. We're in and then we're out. Why are we in and then why are we out? I don't know. Oh, I see. I was already over by 2,200 feet. That's where I wanted to be. So we'll stabilize here at 2,200. And now, that said, let's go ahead and put it on nav right here. And we will get the plane onto the, I'll show you what I did. We are now on the green line here. Trying to get on here. And we'll stay on the navigational course, which is where it's at. Trying to find it right there. So we're in a 15-mile range here. We don't really need our landing light on, or taxi light on. We should. We're below 1,000 feet, but 10,000 feet, but we'll just stay here for a second. We are now on the trail, and if you look around, you'll see the Arkansas River is up here on the right in this neck of the woods. And we're going to keep the weather pretty much consistent like this all day long, because I think more or less this is kind of weather that they predominantly did in the Jeff Bridges version of the movie. So we have a ways to go before we get to Fort Smith. So I'm going to take the sim rate and we're going to increase it here to twice the speed and cut back the power on these engines to 80%, and we'll just carry forward here. So we're on our way to Fort Smith. Mr. LaBeef is quite the character that comes up from Texas. She's going to meet him in Fort Smith. And kind of watching this while I'm looking at my notes to make sure that 2,200 feet is adequate. And I think it is, because everything in red here is danger ahead. We're going to hit some mountains. And I think we're clear sailing to where we are. And I do want to give an idea of what the mountain ranges look like. Monument Valley is a beautiful place, but it's much, much taller than what we're seeing right here. So, Mr. Bandit, what do you think? Are we doing okay? He looks a little nervous. He just keeps looking at the map, wondering, are you on the right course? What were you doing in the beginning? So he's going, knock it off, kid, and keep this thing going in a straight line. So we are now about halfway to first waypoint. We're going to really be heading right to Fort Smith. And at Fort Smith, we're going to be crossing over the Arkansas for the second time. We're going to cross it over again, go to a town, cross it again. And that's the town where she gets it introduced to all the characters. And then she finds out that LaBeef and Mr. Cogborn want to take off without her. And so they jump the gun. And then she follows behind, crossing the Arkansas River on her pony that she bought from the horse trader in Fort Smith. His name was Colonel Stonehill. Quite a character he was, because he had sold the original ponies to her father, and now that her father is dead, he didn't want to buy them back. But she says that he was actually in jurisdiction of them because they were at the barn or the stables that he owned. So when he died, he was taking care of them, and that turned them back into his property. So he should be buying these horses back, these ponies back. So this is an incredible trading scene if you're used to like an auctioneer or going to a trade to get something done and settled. That takes place, and for a 13-year-old young girl, she does hold up to it and does a very adequate job of letting this guy know that nobody's going to take anything away from her without a battle. And so she holds her guns and gets the job done. So in the movies, both movies, you don't really see much of the train ride. You see them get on the train, you get off the train, but that's about it as far as the train ride is concerned. So I'm guessing that I'm kind of following a path that the high school students chose, and I'm assuming they did the homework, probably figured out the lowest level route that a train would take and make it match some car routes. So that's usually how car routes and train routes are made in the low levels, unless there's a floodplain. Maybe double speed is not long enough. Maybe I need to go longer or faster. I don't think I have a 3 times speed. I think it goes from here. Next speed is 4 times. But let's just pick it up so we get the train ride. We get into Fort Smith, and we'll slow it down when we get close to it. If I get outside the plane, you can see we're moving along at a pretty good clip right now. That is, we were doing 150 knots, and now we're doing 600 knots in a little plane that's close to the ground. That's speeding quite a bit. No wonder the dog doesn't want to look out the window. It's scared to death. Can you blame him? Okay, we got one more little waypoint to make, which was be following the road, probably the train tracks below. I see a road directly below us, and then it would turn and go straight into Fort Smith. I'll slow it down a little bit, and hopefully we'll stay out of the squalls. In the movies, they're rented out of snowstorms, so I think a little bit of this activity right up here is probably snowstorming right in here. That was a turn, pretty abrupt. Okay, we'll just continue on because I don't really know how long it's going to take to shoot the whole thing, and I don't want to bore you to death all the way through, so we will continue on at this cruising rate. I am going to do one thing, if you'll excuse me. I'm going to put it in this mode. I'm going to take this wallpaper changer that I have in the background and then pause it. Okay, so it won't be causing any stutters while we're flying here. So they're crossing over, but probably in reality they stayed on the other side to get into Fort Smith. So I think it's time to slow it down. Back to double speed here till we get into Fort Smith, and then we will. So I think in the real reality they're down on the south side, and Fort Smith is straight up ahead. And we'll see how it goes. Maybe I should just fly at the double speed for a while and see how it behaves. Because here it doesn't look too slow when you're looking at it in this way, and we can get the video going faster. Not everybody has YouTube Premium, so for those who don't, I'm sorry, you gotta watch the commercials. For those who do, it'll just be a little shorter ride. Hopefully, if this works out well, my plan is to convert this into a cartoon and do a cartoon version of it. Same version, I'll just add a cartoon effect to it, which I've never done before. I have to create it in DaVinci and then try to see what happens when I do that. Now we're on the outskirts of Fort Smith, and she spent about 3 days here, horse trading and getting the ponies bought and getting her connections with Mr. Cogborn and LaBeef situated. And the problem with LaBeef is, well, he's a good man. He wants to take the body. He wants to take Tom Chaney, capture him alive, and take him down to Texas and hang for a murder that he committed down there. And he committed murder up here. And so Maddie Ross wants him to go back and go to trial and hang for a murder up here. She doesn't want him down there. She can't go down there after him. So she wants justice done. She wants it done here. So she and LaBeef don't get along because of that. There's more money for LaBeef to be made if they go to Texas. And he's splitting that with Rooster Cogburn. So there's secondary deals being made, alliances being made behind her back. And she wasn't real pleased about that. So now we're over Swartz Smith, and we're coming up on the Arkansas River. Somewhere in here is a ferry. And I'm guessing because there's a little river here, that ferry is probably right in this neck of the woods, maybe up here, where Rooster Cogburn and LaBeef cross over, and Maddie Ross has to take her pony and swim across and get to the other side. So, and the pony she's riding has never really been ridden before. It's a fresh pony, so she's on a brand new pony to do this. And so she handles this pony exceptionally well, even though her riding isn't her strong suit. She's very skilled, very adept. Different versions of the book have her basically behaving like an old maid school teacher and Bible teacher. But yet in the movie you get the impressions that she's going to grow up to be a lawyer. So she's a young woman living in a man's world at the time and struggling with men who don't want her to conform to manliness, to want her to be the woman like everybody else, just before we go into the Victorian ages. Now we are headed off toward this Salisal country. Salisal is looking like what over here. So we were heading, we just left Fort Smith. We're getting up to Salisal. We're going to get word that Ned Pepper has been seen at a railroad that he has robbed. With this over here. And he has robbed this railroad up here in Wagoner and Sooner Platform. And this is Salisal, where they get word that Ned Pepper has last been seen. Well, he actually left. McAllister went up to here to rob the train, and now they're going to catch up with him down in this neck of the woods at a robber's cave, and there's going to be a shootout down here. So we're going to come over here, and they're going to have an incident with some Indian boys. Oops. And then again, some Indian boys, and pick up the story and then head south. Along to here, they met a strange fellow wearing a bearskin outfit and a bearskin head, and he's staying warm in a slightly snowy, cold winter day. And there's a dead body in a tree that was hung, strung up anyhow. And so Rooster Cogburn has Maddie climb the tree and cut the body down and see if that's Tom Chaney or Ned Pepper. And it's neither of the two when this man wearing the bear hat comes up, and he says his name is, I'm going to look for it here real quick if you bear with me. I'll find it in a second. Oh well. He had a dead body with him, and he said that he's a doctor, and that he was he would practice on people for anybody that would sit still for him. So he tried to he wanted to buy the body that they just cut down on the tree, figured he could sell it somewhere to the Indians, and get a low price and make some money for it if it really was a bandit, that he could claim a reward for it. So that's where they met down below us here. That was a strange encounter, and I'm looking at my notes, but I don't see his name right now. It's in here. Okay. Anyway, we're going on. I can turn the page. Choctaw Nation down below us, and we're going to turn. We're going to go north a little bit, and there's not a lot of description in the book about the actual route. Every now and then they just mention that they crossed a river. They're in the Choctaw country. They mention places like Salisaw and Wagoner and McAllister, and they mention the Robber's Cave, and they mention another place down south where the Winding Mountains are going to be, where the shootout takes place. But the actual marking of the trail is hard to come by. So hopefully these high school kids in Russellville did this justice. I don't think I will put this on my bucket list to go down and drive this trail, and maybe just make a few changes that I'm making with the plane right now, because where I'm flying can be basically redone by car. And if we ever did buy some motorcycles, small scooters, I think I would take them down here and recreate it. It's 250 miles. It'd be, a good day's ride, maybe a 2-day ride on a scooter, and stop and eat along the way, because I'm sure everybody in here has got a little bit of true grit story they want to tell, and meet the townsfolk and pick up what the story is. So now we're heading up to Salisaw. Oops, I guess we're going to turn a little bit early. So Salisaw must be right in this neck of the woods here. They're going to turn south, and some boys are going to take them across another ferry and get across the river. And I don't think that's it, but there is a reserve here, water reserve, Robert Skewer Reservoir. And so eventually they have to get across this river, and I think there's going to be a little ferry ride taking place right in here. They don't really show it in the movie, they just talk about it in the book. So these boys get them across the ferry here. A couple young teenage Indian lads, maybe younger. So now we're getting deeper into the Choctaw Nation. As Matty Ross puts it, we're now heading south-southwest. So that's where we're going at the moment. And let's get back in the plane, see if everything's behaving okay. We're not speeding. We're doing 160 knots. And because we're time warping, we're really doing 320. Get rid of that alert flight right here. I'm just checking on the fuel, the oil, the temperatures. Everything looked pretty good for going twice as fast. Basically, we got 3/4 tanks of fuel heading south. That's kind of the ferry right up ahead. And another turning point. And maybe that's where they met the character with the bear head. And looks to me like that's going to be right up there by that mountain. I'm looking at my notes for a second. I want to get that name of that man. He kept talking about him in the book about the original Bob from Texas. He's a bad person hanging out with Ned Cheney, Ned Peppers, and looking for his name. I think I wrote it down. Maybe I wrote it on this other piece of paper. Now it's where I wrote down where I think the dead body was hanging in the tree. Yeah, I guess I didn't write down his name. That's why I can't find it. He talks about Bob, not to be confused with another Bob, but the original Bob from Texas, and that's where he said he bought the other dead man. So I thought we'd have a little more sunlight than this, just a little foggy out there. It looks almost smoky. I know there's no smoke. And I don't have my interior lights on, so I don't think it's... Yeah, I was just wondering if I was getting frost on the windows, but I don't see that happening either. We are... Oh... The outside air temperature is, well, could be 12 degrees below zero, or 12 degrees Celsius, the outside air temperature. So it could be a little bit, but I don't think so. I kind of did a dry run of this the other day, and same weather, and I wasn't getting this effect, so maybe it's just the way the sun's playing through these clouds at the moment, and it'll clear up here in a few minutes. Everything else is just the same as it was before when I flew it, except I'm going twice the speed, so maybe that's has something to do with it. We still are going twice the speed, aren't we? No, we're only going one time. Let's speed it back up. Okay, so up here is probably where they ran into the original Bob and got the dead body, and the dead body's hanging in the tree. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So, rendering this video out in DaVinci Resolve, it also got an upgrade, and I'm trying something different this time also. I have my voice recording on one channel, and we're going to head more westerly, and I have the engines of the plane recording on another channel, and I'm not sure how loud the engines are. I don't really hear them in my headset at the moment. I just hear a little bit, but not a lot. And I'm going to try the auto ducking out inside DaVinci Resolve, or I'm going to line up my voice channel with the sound of the engines in the plane on the other channel, and then as I'm talking, I'm going to have it automatically synchronize with the other audio channel and try to duck down the engines, lower the volume, so that my voice will be clear when I'm talking, and when I'm done talking, after a pause, then let the engines come up in volume to be back to where they were before I started talking. So it's common to do this in documentaries, and I thought, why don't I just give that a try in flying airplanes and see how that behaves. So as you can see, the mountains, they're here, they're landmarks. You definitely live on one side or the other side of the mountain, but they are not super tall mountains, they're just there. I think I have the time set for about 12 o'clock noon right now, and yeah. Let's take a look at that time. Yeah, it's about 12:30 at the moment. Okay. So we are coming up again to another section. There's no real rivers right here to cross, but I'm pretty sure that had you taken this by car, you'd be running down that road right below us, right down this neck of the woods, in between the valleys, and that's probably where they were going. And it's not here, probably later, is when there's kind of a confrontation between LaBeef and Rooster Cogburn. While they were both in the Civil War, LaBeef was in Texas with the Texas Rangers and got into the war, and he brought his own pony into it. That was a big deal. He kept talking about that he had to have his own saddle and horse. Whereas Rooster Cogburn, he rode with Quantrell, forget his name, Sam Quantrell. He was in Missouri, and he was a notorious guerrilla fighter. And you could basically say that their notoriously known for being below the belt. They weren't doing battle in the way that normal customary battles were done. They were hit and run, and they seemed like they killed a lot of people unnecessarily, particularly civilians who lived in the countryside. They were hard on them, and in Kansas City. And so Rooster Cogburn, he doesn't really admit that he rode with them, yet he doesn't deny that he didn't ride with them. But his characters, the way he goes after bad people, would make you think that he probably was part of that band, and whatever it took to get the job done is what he did to get the job done. So he's a little on the wild side, which is the reason why Maddie Ross chose him, because she asked a man in Fort Smith, who's the best sheriff to go after Tom Chaney? And the sheriff mentioned 3 people. One was strictly by the book, and he will get the job done. And another one is more of a scouter, and he's more meticulous, takes him longer, but he too will get the job done. And then there's Rooster Cogburn, whose ways are not exactly above board, and if he has to shoot somebody in the back, he'll shoot somebody in the back to get the job done. So at the end of the conversation, Maddie Ross says, "Where can I find this Rooster Cogburn?" And that's how she bumps into him, and they get aligned together. Okay, so we're just ahead up here. They're going to get some more information about where Ned Pepper was and where they think he's going to. And Rooster Cogburn knows this area very well, and Mr. LaBeef does not. So he's from Texas. So he figured they would be a good team to match up together because of Rooster's knowledge of the lay of the land. And Rooster kind of liked the idea that this guy had a sharps rifle with him, so he knows that he's going to be a good shot from a long distance. So they got to join up. They team up. So we're going to turn left in just a moment here, and I hope I have enough altitude. I think I do. You can see down below the range where we're going to go. We're going to turn left, and right in here, this mark right there is where this cabin is going to be, and a shootout is going to occur. So that's going to be in this section of the woods right there. Why is my screen looking faded out? Why is everything looking faded out? Again, I just put on a new NVIDIA driver yesterday, and I hope that's not causing it. And if it is, I can fix it a little bit in DaVinci. The other day I did a little testing just to make sure my microphone was working and other things were working, and outside the plane and everything looked good. I didn't really focus much inside the plane. Or maybe I have my something changed with the last update. And the overall brightness of the GPS is a little brighter now than it needs to be. I'm not sure. I'm not going to get too dwelled on it because I want to focus on where we're going. This is where the action is going to start happening. So as you can see, straight up ahead here is how the cabin is going to be, where it's called the Robbers Cove, and it is a Robbers Cave wildlife management in real life. And outside, let's see if we can get outside the plane here. Get around, look at it a little better here. There's some big mountains in here. There's a creek down here, and so probably right in this area right here is where we're going to turn. But there was a shootout that took place that night. Well, it was a kind of late afternoon when they had first shootout, and then they waited for Ned Pepper and his gang to arrive later. There was a second shootout outside of the cabin, and the end result was several people had died, so they ended up packing up the bodies the next day and taking them to McAllister, making a beeline to McAllister. And that's when they were talking about they don't really know where they're going, but he knows that if he continues west this way, eventually he will run into the Texas Road. The Texas Road will take him all the way down to Texas, and just south would be McAllister. So that's where they go. And he knows somebody in McAllister, and so they'll fuel up, get supplies, and get back on the trail. Ned Pepper and his gang. Tom Cheney is hopefully with them, although they didn't see Tom Cheney at the Robbers Cave, and they didn't see any evidence that he's really with them. But there is somebody who had some cartridge shells from a Henry rifle, and this Tom Cheney is said to be carrying a Henry rifle. So we are now heading toward a beeline straight to McAllister, and we will cross over at McAllister where we'll find the Katy Railroad, the Missouri, Kansas, Texas Railroad, and head south. That railroad's a famous railroad. It kind of starts in Missouri, right here in St. Louis, in St. Charles, and goes west to Kansas City, and then it goes south. So when they robbed it, it was heading south out of Kansas City, and it goes all the way down to Dallas, and in Dallas it runs behind the Texas School Book Depository. And if you know the story of that assassination on John Kennedy, that they had gotten some hobos off the train, and they thought they might be involved, but then they let them go. And of course, we're never going to find out what really happened down there, but it is possible that they did, and they got them off this Katy Railroad. And then from Dallas, then the railroad heads south all the way down to San Antonio, Texas. So there's a lot of traffic that went back and forth on that railroad, and it was really only recently, 25, 30 years ago, that they shut the railroad down. And here in Missouri, they turned the railroad tracks, they took out the tracks, turned it into a bicycle path, and everybody rides the bicycle trail down there. I've got hundreds of miles in on the Katy Trail. Cindy and I have been on there together. So it's a very interesting place. So McAllister is straight ahead. They drop off the bodies. They get refueled and supplied. And in the book, Mr. Cogburn tries to get Mattie Ross to take the train back home, but she refuses and goes on. But that's not really mentioned in either of the two movies. For the most part, both books followed the story in the book pretty well. They didn't deviate a lot from it, just a little bit, to suit the news. So now we're heading back, following what would have been the trail of Ned Cheney, trying to get located onto that. And you can see that straight ahead right here. We're making the curves. We're going to be heading back southeast in a moment here. South and east, even though this is just following the direction of the track. And straight ahead, we'll get into that on the map. You can see that it looks a little more like this, heading down here, coming over to here, following these where the cars would have gone, and eventually we're coming down here to where the shootout took place in what's known as the Winding Stair Mountains. So that's the direction we're heading next, Winding Stair Mountains. And so the ground looks a little flatter in here. And again, I think if you're going to ride hard, you're going to press into the flat ground faster than it will try to go up and down the mountains. So the goal is to bring back somebody and not go back empty-handed. So far, they're pretty much empty-handed. As Rooster explains it, dead people don't bring in much money. So we're pressing on. Okay, we're going to be heading, I guess, a little north and west here in a moment. And we're still on the trail, heading back. Flip my pages here to, that's my notes on page 2. We passed a cabin, we got the dead bodies, we went to McAllister's. up ahead when we're going to get to the Winding Stair Mountains where the shootout takes place. All along the way, Betty is proven to be quite the trail hand. She's taking care of the horses. She's helping to make the meals, and she is becoming a valuable service to them. And unfortunately, that's kind of what led into her demise, because she went down while they were still sleeping early in the morning to get some water to get the fire and the coffee going. And down at the creek is where she runs into Tom Cheney, and he's down there with Ned Pepper's gang, and Tom Cheney recognizes her, and there's a shootout that takes place there, where Maddie has her dad's old Civil War gun. It's a cap shooter, single shot. Well, it's got 5 chambers in it, I guess. Each one has to have a percussion cap on it to make it fire, but it's huge and heavy, not very accurate, not very reliable. But that's what she chose to take with her. And she sees she sees Tom Cheney, and eventually she shoots John Cheney in the ribs, breaks a rib. Then he comes after her and captures her, and in the capture takes her back. Well, meantime, Rooster Cogburn and LaBeef are now alerted to what's going on, and they come down to return fire with the camp because they can't risk shooting Maddie, trying to get her freed from Tom Cheney, and the rest of Ned Pepper's gang is shooting back, so they get away. A deal is made that he will let her go if they ride off and they leave them alone and don't come after her again. So the deal is struck, and you can see Rooster Cogburn in the distance fire off a shot and letting them know that they're gone their own ways. And they change their mind. They don't let Maddie go. Instead, they assign her to Tom Cheney, and then he takes her down to the hideout down in the Winding Stair Mountains. And at that hideout, he's talking about because all the horses have been shot up, they don't have a spare horse for Tom Cheney to get away with them. So they divvy up the money, and the others get away, but they tell Tom to wait there, and he'll be back in the 24-hour window and pick him up and get him out of there, and he didn't like that idea. So he's down there trying to think, what do I do with this Maddie May, and how do I improve my situation here? And his conclusion is that he's going to kill her. And eventually, LaBeef comes on the scene. He rescues Maddie May. He hits Tom Cheney in the head with the butt of his gun. And so they're on top of a high hill, which is probably right about in this area right up here, because this is where the famous shootout is going to occur. And down in the valley is where Rooster Cogburn is going to shoot it out with the 4 members of Ned Peppers and his gang. We see Rooster Cogburn on his horse with the bridle in his mouth, 2 guns blazing, going after him. Fill your hands with lead, you something. How'd that quote go? Your hands, you son of a whatnot. And then they went after him. And then LaBeef makes his famous shot with his sharp rifle from 600 yards. He ends up shooting that Pepper and saving Rooster Cogburn's life. But then by this time, Tom Cheney has come back, struck Ned Pepper or Tom Cheney on the head, struck LaBeef on the head, and took him out. And then somehow or another, Matty Ross gets his gun and shoots him with the sharp rifle, and blows him off the side of the hilltop, which would be right in this neck of the woods. And then she falls backwards into the snake pit. And in the snake pit, she gets bit. But she's down there, and Rooster Cogburn comes back and gets her out. And LeBeef now comes back, and he assists up above by throwing a rope down and pulling him up with safety with a horse. But he's been compromised. He's had a couple gunshot wounds in him, and he's now got this major concussion in the head, and he's not doing well. Maddie's been bitten by a snake. We just turned a corner here, and we're going to get out of the plane. So that was right behind us. Right down here is where the shootout would have taken place. Fill your hand with you son of a you know what. So it is right there where all that took place, supposedly. And we're now heading back on Maddie's pony after her rescue because the other horses were shot up. So she's got a pony carrying Rooster Cogburn and Maddie, and he's riding like a you know what, trying to get to Fort Smith to save her. He eventually does get her there, but not in time to save her arm. So she has to have her arm amputated a few days later. And he hangs around, but then shortly afterwards he leaves. And she never really sees him again in one version of the story. She sees him again at her farm in another version, the John Wayne version. But in the book and in the Jeff Bridges version, they go their own ways. They occasionally exchange letters, and Maddie finds out that he is eventually down in Memphis. He's going to be in Memphis, Tennessee, from a flyer that her brother sent her. And he is joined up with the Buffalo Bill, Wild Bill Cody's parade, Wild Bill Cody's crew, and they're staging an event down in Memphis. So she gets on a train and she goes down to Memphis to see it. And when she gets off, she goes forward and she finds out that she bumps into Cole Younger and Frank James. And Cole Younger is polite and tells her that, by the way, when Rooster rode her off on this ride that we're on right now, he took 2 bullets into him. So he's carrying her, 2 bullets in him, and they're going to go 60 miles on horseback, up pony, up to Fort Smith, and then try to take care of her. And you'll see in the movies, in the book, that the pony is slowing down, and so Rooster wants this pony to go faster. So he takes his knife out and he digs it into the flanks of the horse and spurs him on by causing a great deal of pain and wounds to him. And that makes him go faster, and Maddie kind of arouses a little bit to what's going on. She didn't like it, but she knows what he's doing. She's losing consciousness. And then in the book, but not in the movies, the horse is slowing down again. So Rooster Cogburn reaches into his pockets on his jacket, and he's got some like rock salt in there, and he grabs a handful of that and rubs it into the wounds on the horse, and that's painful and makes the horse go even faster. And eventually, when they're just a few miles away from their destination, the poor horse gives out and can't go on anymore. So Rooster Cogburn puts the horse to rest, and picks up Maddie Ross and carries her up to the doctor's house to get her attention. Cole Younger and Frank James. And when so Cole Younger explains to her that Rooster Cogburn had died about 3 days earlier in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Jonesboro, Arkansas is the headquarters of Walmart, and so he was buried in a graveyard up there, and so there's really no real reason to stick around. except that Cole Younger said that he and Rooster had lively times when they're acquaintances. Then he asked Maddie, what was the nature of your acquaintance with Rooster Cogburn? And she looked at him and said, we too had lively times. And then she picked up her bag to leave, and she turned and she looked at Frank James, and she said, keep your seat, trash. Because he never got up once, he never acknowledged her, never said a word to her. She goes back home, and then later she had the body exhumed, Rooster Cogburn's body exhumed, put on a tray, and shipped back to their farm where the family burial plot was. And, oops, we are not flying the path. Something has gone wrong here. I need to get back in the plane a second. Excuse me, I think I need to tell it. We have to get on the approach. Oh, I need to activate the approach. The procedure, I'm going to activate the approach now. Okay. And over here, I'm going to activate the approach. So that looks kind of strange because this really has us going a long ways out of our ways. Let's modify this a little bit. Well, we're going faster. Let's just go ahead and put it up into 4-2. Whoa, are we gonna make it? We're gonna make it? What do you think, Bandit? Oh yes, we cleared it. Oh man, it's close. Yeah, we'll see there's nothing right there. We gotta get up to next to this one, then we're gonna turn left. But we're going a little bit too slow, so I am going to increase the speed a little bit. We'll get there a little faster. And I know you're gonna get scared. I'm sorry about that. Gonna be a close call. I was gonna start to descend a little bit toward the altitudes that we need to land. But I think I will just carry on and clear this one. Mercy. Oh, now we're turning. 500. That was close. It was close. We're going to get back on track. We're now heading back. And eventually at some point here, I'm going to have to start slowing these engines down because since we're going this fast, I can do that right about now. I hope nobody's getting seasick out there. No, these are turbocharged. I'm going to bring it down in stages. So bear with me while I do this. And I'm going to bring you into about a 7.5 mile range. So you're straight ahead. And we are now picking up the trail. So it looks to me like we're going to get out here. We're going to come around and come back. And we sure are buffeting the winds right here, which is weird because it's only 13 knot wind. So I don't really understand that, except maybe I'm going a little too fast and I don't want to slow down just yet. We will slow down in a moment because I think something tells me the video is getting quite long now. I can't really see the recording time. It's 1 hour and 4 minutes. So in a moment here we will slow down and get set up for the landing. So, you guys ever get a chance? Let's slow her down. I can see it struggling here on the autopilot. I slow down to double speed. Yeah, it's giving the autopilot a hard time here. And we're on the localizer now. Okay. We'll just continue double speed until I make the next turn, and then we'll slow it down and go from there. Okay. Well, I didn't really fly the whole route, timing it to see how long it would take before. I didn't want it to take too long. I didn't want it to go too fast, but I wanted it to be just right. So it looks to me like the Arkansas River is coming up right below us, and that will be our turn into Here we go. Turn back into Fort Smith. So after this turn, we'll slow it down. We'll get set up. I guess we could do that about now. We're not that far away. Okay. And we won't be shocking everybody around so much. So we're cooling down the engines as we go here. And bring it back to about 40% power. And that's going to slow us down to about 130 knots. And if you look up ahead here, you can see the airport where it's at. So that's our guidance system. We got everything in place. I'm going to bring our altitude down. I've already looked it up to, well, I need to come down altitude to about 1,800 feet. And the vertical speed here. I'm down about 300 feet. And we've got a glide slope, but we haven't captured it yet. But we're on the localizer still. Okay, let's see how well it does. I think I did an RNAV approach the other day, and it worked, but it did not capture the glide slope. So I had to take over at the last minute and fly by hand. And so we were now 1940 feet coming down. We were slowing down to 142. I'm going to bring the power back just a little more. About 32 on the power here. 31, that's good. And we'll level off. And it'll slow us down a little bit. And we will slow a little more. 30% power. I see it down there. I'm kind of looking right in here at that power. And when this gets down closer to the white range, that's when we're going to put our flaps in. But we can put our gear in now any moment. So I'm just going to get that ready to set up here. So we can localize here coming. And yeah, I think it was at this next waypoint that we should be down to about 1,850 feet and pick it up. I'm going to come in just a little bit below it, and we will go from there. So in a moment here, we'll put the gear down. Are we doing okay there? Doing okay there, Mr. Bandit? Are you scared that you're still staring straight ahead? Oh man, you need a drink of water, don't you? I need something more than that. Okay, 1,800 feet, slowing down. We can put the flaps on, we can put the gear down. Let's go ahead with the gear down first. And then I'm going to put in the level of flaps. One level of flaps. We got 3 levels of flaps. Now we're slowing down. And I want to, we're going to be at the FAF in 0.1 miles. So now we ought to be picking up the glide slope any moment. This should turn green when we capture it did. We have captured the glide slope. We're on our way down. So we're coming down. How's it look outside? Well, we're looking good. We're looking very good. Now, I guess I should have changed the time. It was very, very dark in the movie. I should mention that in the John Wayne movie version, that a lot of it was shot in the daylight, but in the Jeff Bridges it was shot more in the evening hours and twilight hours. And I'm guessing, just a guess, that perhaps it was due to camera technology was so much more advanced in 2010 versus 1969 that now you can capture better light at low light and get better quality video, and it should look a lot better. And so maybe that's why they chose to do it, to stay truer and closer to the book than what the John Wayne version did. You know, John Wayne, at that time, those were the cameras they had, so they used the tools that they had to get the job done. So they did an excellent thing, and You know, you've all seen the old movies where you can turn night or day into night, and you just film it with the best you can. But then when you turn the sliders down and get darkness, you get a lot of shadows walking around. At nighttime, unless you're walking in front of light, you don't really get shadows walking around the trees. So it takes away from the realism of it. And that kind of happened to me. Okay, we're coming down at 70 knots. We don't really want to get any slower than this. I'm going to give it one more boost to 31% power, just to make sure we don't fall off at the last second. We're coming in, and if you look up ahead here, the MAPI lights, we got 2 white and 2 red, which is perfect, Fred. Come on down, and we'll just stay right about here till we get there. When we do land, I think we want to get down toward the left-hand side is where the parking areas are, where the airport is, and we'll pull in there as soon as we get the opportunity. So, it's been a pleasure making this flight. I hope I haven't steered away too much from this story. Hope that I didn't scare anybody away from watching the movie. And I'm kind of curious to see what this looks like in the cartoon version, whether or not anybody even looks at it in the cartoon version. So it could be a one and done thing. Make it, but don't ever do it again, because nobody cares about seeing it in cartoon. It's not a cartoon movie. But in flying planes, what is cartoon? Everybody wants realism. So cartoon wouldn't be quite right. Okay, I think we're close enough about here. I can see planes on the left up here. And we're gonna just take it off autopilot right about here. We'll just hand fly her down. Whoa, some wind coming up at the last minute on the ground. Let's cut some more power. Try to get it down. Leveled out. Bring it back in. And well, we're really ever off course now. Are we gonna make it? Whoa. Came down a little bit early. And let's just cut her down. And we'll slow these engines down. Okay, I don't think I'm going to take the first runway off. I think I'll take the second one off. Right about here. Ooh, a little icy out here. Let's get her going. Come down here. And we'll slip it around to the right. Well, they need to come out here and fix these taxiways. Take care of this thing. What do we got up ahead? Guess we gotta cross the runway. Hope we okay. It's right there. It's a little late now to be looking, but we're good. Coming over here, and so we come down here and slip in this way. Oh, that's not it. Whoa, what did I do? I think we need to go down one more. Boy, did I botch this up on the trying to get back to the airport. It's a little rough on the ground with all that weight. So we'll just keep going a little more. We'll take the next ones up here. Probably the blue is where I want to go. So, yeah, I see airplanes up there. We'll just tag on here a little bit further. And we get up here, we'll get prepared to shut down everything in the plane. Well, at least we didn't crash, so I'm happy about that. Let's try this one. Get about here. And bring this one into play. Well, I don't think that's it either. I think that's another runway. I think the blues represent the runways. So, I think I'm right. So with that said, I'm just going to hop across the grass here a little bit, come back up here, and we will skedaddle down here and coming this way. Ooh, slipping. Come up here and find a place to park it. Any other small planes up here? I don't see too many. I forgot that I was going to change the amount of traffic on the ground and increase it a little bit. So I don't really see much out here but me. So with that said, I'm just going to bring it up about here. And we will hold it up here. Maybe right about here. And bring it to a park right there. Set those brakes. Let's come down here and get the caution lights off. And we'll take the P-dot heat off. I didn't have the fuel pumps on all that time. And I guess I should have hit the range button here. Probably would have seen the airport better this way, knowing where I was going. So it brought us in safe and sound. And with that, it's a simple plane to start up and down. I'm going to cut the right engine first. We'll just pull the power on that. And we'll just pull the power on the other engine. And that's really all you have to do. Everything else, you just let her go. And we'll turn off the navigation. And we'll turn off the batteries. So we're now cold and dark. And, Bandit, what do you think? You still scared to death? You look a little nervous to me. So hopefully, you want T-bone? Is that what you're saying? Is this, do I push a button and get a T-bone out of here? Or you're drooling for it, aren't you? So we will just hop out here and just give you a little tour right here of the airport. And it's slick out there. Maybe 12 below 0 Celsius. It is a little icy out there. I should have been paying more attention. I left my flaps down. Oh well. Anyhow, with that said, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you on the next one. Alrighty, and that's going to be JFK, I think. Got to reproduce JFK's flight the night that he passed away from us up in New York. Okay now, take care. Bye-bye now.